I don't have the complete money. I need this medicine for my heart.
Don't worry, I will pay the complete balance.
Thank you, dear.
Celina Brooks, you knowingly violated company policy by paying for a customer prescription while working your register during an active transaction. Your employment with Green Valley Pharmacy is terminated. You are fired.
You are firing me? I only wanted to help.
I am afraid there is nothing more to discuss.
She gave away the last $24 she had to save an old woman's life. Seconds later, she lost the only job that kept food on the table for her little sister. But no one inside that pharmacy knew the quiet old woman standing at the register was hiding a secret that would change everything. Hello friends, welcome to our story. Before we begin, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Also, tell us in the comment section where you are watching from. The afternoon sun beat down on Atlanta's West End, making the sidewalks shimmer with heat. Inside Green Valley Pharmacy, the old air conditioner rattled above the checkout counters, doing its best to cool the crowded store. Customers stood in long lines, some checking their phones, others pushing shopping carts filled with groceries and medicine. Behind Register 3 stood Celina Brooks, a kind-hearted young Black American woman in her mid-20s. She wore a neatly pressed green cashier's uniform with her name tag pinned to her shirt. Even though she smiled at every customer, tiredness hid behind her warm brown eyes. Life had not been easy for Celina. Ever since her mother passed away 2 years earlier, she had become everything to her 10-year-old sister, Maya. She was a sister, a parent, a protector, and the only person Maya could depend on. Every paycheck disappeared almost as soon as it arrived. Rent, electricity, school supplies, food, and bus fare left almost nothing behind. That afternoon was no different. During her short break, Celina quietly reached into the pocket of her apron and counted the money she had left. $24. She counted it again just to be sure. That was all she had until payday. It had to cover bus fare home, dinner for Maya, and breakfast the next morning. She slipped the money back into her pocket and whispered to herself, "We'll make it somehow." Then she returned to her register and greeted the next customer with the same gentle smile she gave everyone. A few minutes later, the automatic doors slowly opened. An elderly Black American woman stepped inside. She looked to be in her late 70s. Her gray hair was neatly tied back, and she wore a simple faded cardigan over a plain dress. She carried an old handbag that looked as though it had been with her for years. She walked slowly toward the pharmacy counter before making her way to Celina's register with a small paper bag containing one prescription. Her hands trembled as she placed it on the counter. Celina smiled warmly. "Good afternoon, ma'am." The elderly woman returned a weak smile. "Good afternoon, dear." Celina scanned the prescription. "The total comes to $42. The woman's smile disappeared. She slowly opened her handbag and searched through it. Coins. A few folded dollar bills. Old receipts. She searched again. Then again. Finally, she looked up with eyes filled with embarrassment. I'm $18 short." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I need this medicine for my heart." The customers waiting behind her began to sigh impatiently. The line behind the elderly woman grew longer by the second. One customer checked his watch. Another woman shook her head with frustration. A young mother quietly pulled her shopping cart to one side as her little boy asked why everyone had stopped moving. The elderly woman lowered her head, too ashamed to look at anyone. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I thought I had enough." She slowly reached for the small paper bag, preparing to leave without the medicine that could keep her alive. Before she could take another step, a deep voice cut through the store. "Step aside." The entire checkout area fell silent. A tall Black American man in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit walked toward the register. His polished shoes echoed against the floor as every employee straightened their posture. His name was Jules Carter. He was the company's regional operations director, visiting stores across the city for an unannounced inspection. Known for enforcing company policy without mercy, Jules believed rules existed for one reason: to be followed. His sharp eyes moved from the elderly woman to the register screen. "She doesn't have enough money," he said calmly. Celina nodded. "She's $18 short." Jules folded his hands behind his back. "Then cancel the sale and serve the next customer." The elderly woman tightened her grip on her handbag. Tears gathered in her eyes. She nodded slowly. "I understand." She turned to leave. Celina's heart sank. She looked at the medicine sitting on the counter. Then she looked at the frightened old woman walking away. Something inside her refused to let it happen. "Sir," Celina said quietly. Jules stopped. "May I say something?" He turned to face her. "You have 10 seconds. Celina swallowed. "She needs this medicine. Without it—" Jules interrupted her. "This store is not a charity." His voice remained calm, but every word carried authority. "If we make exceptions for one customer, we make exceptions for everyone." The customers listened in complete silence. Celina looked down at her apron pocket. She knew exactly what was inside. $24. The last money she had in the world. Money meant for Maya's dinner. Money for tomorrow's bus ride. Money that stood between her family and an empty kitchen. Her hands trembled as she reached into her pocket. She unfolded the worn bills and counted them one last time. $24. Without giving herself time to think, she placed the money on the counter. "I'll pay the balance." The elderly woman gasped. "No, dear. You can't." Celina smiled gently. "Yes, I can." She completed the payment, placed the medicine into the woman's hands and looked her in the eyes. "I hope you feel better soon." Tears rolled down the elderly woman's cheeks. She held Celina's hands tightly. "You have a beautiful heart," she whispered. "May God reward you for this kindness." For a brief moment, Celina forgot about the money she had just given away. She simply felt relieved that someone would go home with the medicine they needed. Then Jules spoke again. His expression never changed. "Celina Brooks." She slowly turned toward him. "Yes, sir. You knowingly violated company policy by paying for a customer's prescription while working your register during an active transaction." The entire store watched in silence. "As of this moment," he paused, "your employment with Green Valley Pharmacy is terminated." The medicine slipped slightly in the elderly woman's trembling hands. The customers stared in disbelief. Even the cashier at the next register stopped scanning groceries. Celina stood frozen. She had just saved a stranger's life. And in return, she had lost everything. For a few long seconds no one moved. The pharmacy was so quiet that the steady hum of the old air conditioner sounded louder than ever. Celina stared at Jules, hoping she had misunderstood. You're firing me?" she asked softly. Jules looked at her without emotion. "I enforce company policy. You knowingly violated it. But I only wanted to help." "I don't doubt your intentions," he replied. "But intentions don't replace rules." He reached into his leather briefcase, removed a termination form and handed it to the store manager. "Collect her name badge and store keys." The manager hesitated. "Sir, she's one of our best employees." Jules didn't even look at him. "My decision stands." Celina slowly removed her name tag. She had worn it proudly every day for 3 years. Now it felt heavier than ever. She placed it on the counter. Without another word, she picked up her small handbag. The elderly woman stepped toward her, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Celina forced a small smile. "Please don't blame yourself. If you hadn't helped me, I would make the same choice again." The old woman's lips trembled. She gently squeezed Celina's hand. "I'll never forget what you did today." Celina nodded politely and walked toward the exit. As the automatic doors opened, the hot Atlanta air rushed over her. She stood outside the pharmacy for a moment trying to breathe. Then reality hit her. She reached into her apron pocket. It was empty. Not $1 remained. No money for the bus. No money for groceries. No money for Maya. She closed her eyes and fought back tears. No, she whispered to herself. You can't break down now. She started the long walk home under the blazing afternoon sun. Every step felt heavier than the last. Her feet ached. Her stomach growled. But none of that hurt as much as the thought of facing Maya. How could she tell a 10-year-old girl that they had no income anymore? Back at the pharmacy, the elderly woman remained standing near the checkout counter. She looked toward the entrance long after Celina disappeared from sight. Then she slowly turned to Jules. For the first time, the warmth disappeared from her face. You dismissed her because she showed compassion? Jules answered calmly. I dismissed her because she broke policy. The old woman studied him in silence. And if someone you loved needed medicine they couldn't afford? Jules didn't answer. She gave a slow nod. I see. Without saying another word, she walked out of the pharmacy. Jules watched her leave. He told himself he had done the right thing. Rules were what kept a business alive. Still, for reasons he couldn't explain, he couldn't stop thinking about the young cashier who had given away everything she had for someone she had never met. And for the first time in years, his decision didn't feel like a victory. 3 days passed. For Celina they felt like 3 long years. Every morning she woke before sunrise, made breakfast for Maya, and smiled as if everything was fine. She never let her little sister see the fear hiding behind her eyes. After Maya left for summer school, Celina spent the day searching for work. She visited supermarkets, drugstores, convenience stores, restaurants, anywhere with a now hiring sign. Each place gave her the same answer. We'll keep your application on file. Someone else has already been hired. We'll call you if a position opens. But no phone call ever came. By the 3rd evening, only a few cans of soup and a loaf of bread remained in their tiny apartment. Celina sat quietly at the kitchen table, staring at the stack of unpaid bills. The rent was due in less than a week. The electricity bill was already overdue. She rubbed her forehead and whispered to herself, Lord, I don't know what to do anymore. Just then Maya walked into the kitchen carrying her favorite storybook. She smiled brightly. Did you find a new job today? Celina forced herself to smile back. Not yet. It's okay, Maya said, wrapping her small arms around her sister. You're the strongest person I know. I know something good is coming. Those simple words almost made Celina cry. She hugged Maya tightly. I hope you're right. A few minutes later. Knock. 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 Both sisters looked toward the front door. Celina frowned. We're not expecting anyone. She walked over and opened the door. The moment she did, her eyes widened. Standing outside was the elderly woman from the pharmacy. But this wasn't the same woman. Gone was the faded cardigan. Gone was the worn handbag. Standing before her was an elegant black American woman dressed in a beautifully tailored cream-colored suit. A delicate pearl necklace rested around her neck, and her silver hair was styled perfectly. Behind her stood 2 professional security officers in dark suits. Parked beside the sidewalk was a long black luxury sedan that gleamed in the evening sun. Celina blinked several times. She almost didn't recognize her. The elderly woman smiled warmly. Hello, Celina. Celina stood speechless. Ma'am, is that really you? It is. Before Celina could ask another question, one of the security officers opened the rear door of the luxury car and carefully placed a polished wooden gift box into the elderly woman's hands. She looked back at Celina. May I come in? There's something I need to tell you. Still confused, Celina stepped aside. Of course. The elderly woman entered the small apartment, smiling kindly at Maya. You must be Maya. Maya nodded shyly. Yes, ma'am. I've heard wonderful things about you. Celina frowned. You know my sister's name? The elderly woman smiled again. I know a great deal about the young woman who gave up everything to save my life. She gently placed the wooden box on the coffee table. Then she looked directly into Celina's eyes. My name isn't simply Paloma. She paused. My full name is Paloma Grant. Celina stared at her, trying to remember where she had heard that name before. Then it hit her. Her heart almost stopped. Every pharmacy, every hospital, every medical clinic, every television commercial promoting Grant Healthcare. They all carried that name. Celina covered her mouth. No. Paloma nodded gently. Yes. I am the founder and owner of Grant Healthcare. The pharmacy where you worked. The regional hospitals. The medical centers across the country. They all belong to my company. Celina could barely breathe. The quiet woman she had helped with her last $24 wasn't just wealthy. She was one of the most respected billionaires in America. Celina stood frozen. She looked from Paloma to the two security officers waiting outside. Then she looked at the luxury car parked in front of her apartment. Nothing about this felt real. I'm sorry, she said softly. Are you saying you own Green Valley Pharmacy? Paloma smiled. I do. And not just that one. She took a seat on the old sofa and looked around the small apartment. The worn furniture. The peeling paint near the kitchen doorway. The stack of unpaid bills on the table. Everything told the story of a young woman who had been fighting alone for a very long time. Paloma's eyes became gentle. You remind me of someone. Celina sat across from her. Who? My younger self. Celina looked surprised. You. Paloma nodded. I wasn't born rich, Celina. There was a time when I struggled to buy food. I know what it feels like to wonder how you'll pay rent. I know what it feels like to choose between eating and buying medicine. Maya listened quietly from the corner of the room. Paloma continued. That's why I visit my businesses without telling anyone who I am. Celina frowned. You mean? I dress like an ordinary customer. I don't do it to test people. She smiled. I do it to remind myself who we are supposed to serve. Her smile slowly faded. But every visit teaches me something about the people who represent my company. She looked directly at Celina. 3 days ago I watched customers complain. I watched employees look away. I watched a powerful executive choose policy over compassion. Then her face softened again. But I also watched one young cashier give away everything she had to help a stranger. Celina lowered her eyes. I didn't do it to impress anyone. I know. You didn't even know who I was. Paloma reached into the wooden box she had brought. Inside was a neatly arranged folder with the Grant Healthcare logo stamped in gold. She slid it across the table. I didn't come here to thank you. Celina looked confused. You didn't? No. I came here because people like you are exactly who my company needs. Celina slowly opened the folder. Inside was an official letter. She read the first few lines. Her eyes grew wider with every word. Executive Leadership Development Program. She looked up. What is this? Paloma smiled. It's an opportunity. You'll receive a full salary. Paid training. Health insurance. Leadership coaching. And if you complete the program successfully. She paused. You'll become one of the youngest community development directors in my company. Celina's hands began to shake. She had applied for cashier jobs all week. Now one of the biggest healthcare companies in America was offering her a career she had never imagined. I don't have a college degree. Paloma smiled. I've already read your file. You may not have a degree. But you have something that can't be taught. Character. She leaned forward. Skills can be learned. Integrity cannot. Tears filled Celina's eyes. You really believe I can do this? I don't believe it. Paloma replied with quiet confidence. I know it. Just then Maya threw her arms around Celina. I told you something good was coming. For the first time since losing her job, Celina laughed through her tears. She hugged Maya tightly. Then she looked back at Paloma. Thank you. Paloma gently shook her head. No, Celina. You already thanked me. You thanked me the day you chose kindness over comfort. There is just one thing you should know before your first day. Celina looked at her. The man who fired you. Paloma's expression grew serious. You'll be seeing him again. Celina hardly slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she remembered the moment Jules had fired her in front of a store full of customers. Now she was about to work in the same company again. Only this time, everything was different. Early the next morning, she stood in front of the mirror wearing a navy blue business suit that Grant Healthcare had sent to her apartment. She carefully tied her hair into a neat bun and took a deep breath. Maya smiled proudly. You look like a real boss. Celina laughed. I don't feel like one. You will. Maya hugged her. I know you will. An hour later, a company driver dropped Celina in front of Grant Healthcare's headquarters. The tall glass building stretched into the sky, surrounded by beautiful gardens and fountains. Employees in business suits walked through the revolving doors while luxury cars pulled up one after another. Celina stared at the building. Just a few days ago she had been worrying about bus fare. Now she was standing outside one of the biggest healthcare companies in the country. She whispered to herself, "Don't be afraid." Inside, the lobby was bright and elegant. Employees greeted one another with warm smiles as they hurried to meetings. A receptionist welcomed Celina. Good morning, Ms. Brooks. We've been expecting you. She handed Celina an employee badge. Mrs. Grant is waiting for you on the executive floor. Celina thanked her and stepped into the elevator. As the doors opened on the top floor, she saw Paloma waiting with a smile. You made it. I almost thought I was dreaming, Celina admitted. Paloma laughed softly. It's real. She placed a reassuring hand on Celina's shoulder. Come with me. I'd like you to meet the leadership team. They walked through a hallway lined with photographs showing the company's history. Doctors, nurses, community clinics, families whose lives had been changed through Grant Healthcare. Paloma stopped outside a large conference room. Before she could open the door, another voice spoke behind them. I see you accepted the offer. Celina immediately recognized the voice. She turned slowly. Jules. He looked exactly as he had in the pharmacy. Impeccably dressed in a dark tailored suit. His expression revealed nothing, but his sharp eyes never left Celina. For a few seconds neither of them spoke. Finally, Celina broke the silence. I didn't expect to see you again. Jules gave a slight nod. Neither did I. Paloma looked from one to the other. I believe you already know each other. We do, Celina answered. Jules folded his hands behind his back. I've already apologized to Mrs. Grant for how things unfolded at the pharmacy. Celina looked surprised. You have. He nodded once. I enforced company policy. Then after a brief pause he added, but I underestimated the value of compassion. It wasn't a full apology, but it was the closest thing to one that Jules had ever given anyone. Paloma smiled. Good. Because from today forward the two of you will be working together. Celina blinked. Working together? Paloma nodded. Your first assignment is to lead a community health initiative that will bring affordable medical care to underserved neighborhoods. She looked toward Jules. And Jules will oversee the project. Jules met Celina's eyes. My job is to make sure the project succeeds. Then he added in his calm, steady voice. I'll also be evaluating your performance. Most people would have felt intimidated. Instead, Celina stood a little taller. I have nothing to hide. For the first time since they met, the corner of Jules' mouth almost formed a smile. Almost. Good, he said. I don't waste time on people who pretend to be something they're not. As they entered the conference room together, Neither of them realized that someone across the room was watching them very carefully. A senior executive named Vanessa narrowed her eyes. She had spent years trying to earn Paloma's trust. Now a former cashier had walked into the company and was already receiving more attention than she ever had. Jealousy quietly settled into Vanessa's heart. And before the meeting was over, she had already begun planning how to make sure Celina's success came to an end. Celina threw herself into her new role with everything she had. She knew this wasn't just another job. It was the chance she had prayed for. Every morning she left home before sunrise and returned after dark. She visited neighborhoods that had gone years without proper medical care. She listened to parents who couldn't afford prescriptions, elderly people who skipped doctor's appointments because they had no transportation, and families forced to choose between paying rent and buying medicine. She didn't sit behind a desk all day. She walked the streets. She knocked on doors. She listened. Before long, people began talking about the young woman from Grant Healthcare who actually cared. Inside the company, her reputation grew just as quickly. Executives praised her reports. Community leaders requested her by name. Even employees who had doubted her started respecting her. Not everyone was happy. Vanessa watched every bit of Celina's success with growing frustration. She was a cashier a week ago, she muttered to herself. How is she getting all this attention? Meanwhile, Jules couldn't stop noticing Celina. At first he told himself he was simply doing his job. He was assigned to oversee her project. Nothing more. But every meeting proved him wrong. She never took credit for someone else's work. She never looked down on anyone. She treated the janitors, receptionists, security guards, and executives with the same respect. One evening, long after most employees had gone home, Jules noticed a light still shining from a conference room. He walked over and looked through the glass. Celina was sitting alone. Papers covered the table. Maps. Budgets. Medical reports. She looked exhausted, but she kept working. Jules knocked gently before stepping inside. You should have gone home hours ago. Celina looked up and smiled. I didn't even realize how late it was. He glanced at the stack of files. You're doing the work of 3 people. She laughed softly. It feels like it. Jules picked up one of the reports. You visited every neighborhood yourself? I wanted to hear people's stories. You could have sent someone else. I could have. She looked out the window for a moment. But if I'm asking people to trust us, the least I can do is show up. Jules was quiet. That answer stayed with him. For years he had measured people by numbers, results, and performance reports. Celina measured people by compassion. It was something he didn't fully understand. Yet he couldn't stop admiring it. You know, he finally said, most people would have taken this opportunity to impress the board. Celina smiled. I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm just trying to make sure people get the health care they deserve. For the first time in years, Jules found himself smiling without realizing it. You really mean that? I do. He looked at her for a long moment. You're different, Celina. Before she could respond, a shadow moved outside the conference room. Vanessa. She had come back to collect a forgotten folder. Instead, she saw Jules smiling. She had worked beside him for 4 years. She had never seen him smile at anyone. She quietly stepped back before either of them noticed her. Her jaw tightened. So that's what this is, she whispered. It isn't just work anymore. The next morning, Vanessa secretly accessed the project files while Celina was away meeting with community leaders. She copied budgets, opened presentations, studied every document. Then a cold smile spread across her face. If I can't stop her from succeeding. She closed the laptop quietly. I'll make sure everyone believes she can't be trusted. As she walked away from Celina's office, the first piece of her plan had already fallen into place. She wasn't just trying to ruin a project anymore. She was preparing to destroy Celina's reputation. The morning of the board meeting finally arrived. For weeks, Celina had worked day and night preparing for this moment. If the presentation was approved, Grant Healthcare would build free medical clinics in neighborhoods where thousands of families struggled to afford basic healthcare. This wasn't just another business meeting. It was a chance to change lives. Celina stood outside the boardroom and took a deep breath. "You've got this," she whispered to herself. The large doors opened. Inside, the room was filled with senior executives, board members, and community leaders. Paloma sat at the head of the table. Jules sat a few seats away, reviewing the meeting agenda. When he looked up, he gave Celina a small nod. It wasn't much, but somehow it calmed her nerves. Paloma smiled warmly. "Good morning, Celina." "Good morning, Mrs. Grant. We're ready whenever you are." Celina walked confidently to the front of the room. She connected her laptop to the projector. The first few slides went perfectly. She explained the healthcare needs of each community. She presented interviews with local families. She shared realistic plans to open clinics where they were needed most. Several board members nodded with approval. Then she clicked to the financial budget. The smile disappeared from her face. She froze. The numbers on the screen weren't hers. Construction costs had nearly doubled. Medical equipment expenses had been changed. The final budget was millions of dollars higher than the one she had carefully prepared. Her heart started racing. What? She looked down at her laptop. The files had been altered. Someone had changed everything. The room became silent. A board member leaned forward. "Is something wrong, Ms. Brooks?" Celina could have continued. She could have pretended the numbers were correct. Maybe no one would notice until later. But that wasn't who she was. She slowly closed her laptop. Then she turned off the projector. Everyone looked at her in confusion. She faced the board with calm determination. "I'm sorry." The room remained silent. "The figures that were just displayed are not the ones I prepared." Several executives exchanged surprised looks. Celina continued. "I don't know how they were changed, and I won't pretend that I do." She took a deep breath. "As the project leader, I accept full responsibility for what appears on this screen." She looked directly at Paloma. "If this mistake has damaged your confidence in me, I understand." She paused. "And if you believe I should resign, I'll accept your decision." The room was completely still. No one expected those words. In the corporate world, people usually looked for excuses. They blamed coworkers. They blamed technology. They blamed anyone but themselves. But Celina chose honesty. Paloma slowly stood. She looked around the room before speaking. "In all my years of leading this company," she smiled proudly, "I've never been more impressed." The room filled with surprised whispers. Paloma continued. "Budgets can be corrected. Files can be restored. But honesty," she looked directly at Celina, "is priceless." Then she began clapping. One board member joined her. Then another. Within seconds, the entire room was standing, applauding Celina. Tears filled Celina's eyes. She hadn't expected this. Across the room, Jules never took his eyes off her. His respect had grown into something much deeper. He stood slowly. Then he spoke. His calm voice echoed through the boardroom. "Someone deliberately changed these files." The applause stopped. Jules looked around the room. "I don't yet know who did it." His eyes became cold. "But I promise you this." He paused. "I will find the person responsible." Several people shifted nervously in their seats. Only one person looked away. Vanessa. For the first time since her plan began, she was afraid. The investigation moved faster than anyone expected. Jules ordered the company's cybersecurity team to examine every computer that had accessed Celina's presentation. Within hours, they discovered the truth. Security footage showed Vanessa entering Celina's office while she was away. Computer records confirmed that the presentation had been opened, altered, and saved using Vanessa's employee credentials. There was no denying it. The evidence spoke for itself. The next morning, Vanessa was called into the executive boardroom. She looked around nervously as Paloma, Jules, and the board members waited in silence. Jules placed a folder on the table. "Before you say anything," he said calmly, "I'd like you to look at this." Vanessa opened the folder. Her face turned pale. The security photos, the computer records, the access logs. Everything was there. She slowly lowered her head. "I'm sorry." Paloma sighed. "You weren't trying to hurt a project. You were trying to destroy an honest person's future." Vanessa began to cry. "I was jealous. I thought if Celina failed, people would notice me instead." Paloma looked at her with disappointment. "Jealousy never builds a future. It only destroys one." Vanessa's employment was terminated immediately. Legal action was also taken for deliberately tampering with company records. As she packed her belongings later that afternoon, employees watched quietly from a distance. No one celebrated. No one laughed. Among them was Celina. She walked toward Vanessa carrying a small paper bag. Vanessa looked up with red, swollen eyes. "What do you want?" Celina held out the bag. "I brought you something to eat." Vanessa stared at her in disbelief. "After everything I did to you?" Celina smiled gently. "When I helped Mrs. Grant, I didn't know who she was. I helped because it was the right thing to do." She placed the warm meal into Vanessa's hands. "I won't let someone else's bitterness change the kind of person I choose to be." Vanessa broke down in tears. "I don't deserve your kindness." "Maybe not," Celina replied softly. "But everyone deserves the chance to become better." From the hallway, Jules had witnessed the entire conversation. He realized something in that moment. Celina's kindness wasn't an act. It was simply who she was. Later that evening, Jules asked Celina to meet him on the rooftop terrace overlooking the Atlanta skyline. A gentle breeze moved through the air as the city lights began to glow. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Finally, Jules broke the silence. "I've spent most of my life believing strength came from being the toughest person in the room." He looked at Celina. "You proved me wrong." She smiled. "I didn't prove anything. You did." He stepped closer. "The day I fired you, I thought I was protecting the company." He lowered his head. "But you were protecting something much more important. Our humanity." His voice became softer. "I've admired your courage, your honesty, your compassion. And somewhere along the way," he smiled for the first time without holding back, "I fell in love with you." Tears filled Celina's eyes. She had never imagined hearing those words from the man she once feared the most. "I love you too," she whispered. Jules gently took her hand. "I promise that from this day forward, you'll never have to carry life's burdens alone." 1 year later, the West End Community Health Center officially opened its doors. Families filled the building with smiles and hope. Children received medical care. Senior citizens collected their prescriptions without worrying about the cost. Paloma stood proudly beside Celina and Jules during the ribbon-cutting ceremony. That evening, Paloma handed Celina and Maya a small gift box. Inside was the deed to a beautiful home just minutes from the new health center. "It's yours," Paloma said. "No mortgage. No debt. No more worrying about where you'll live." Maya threw her arms around Celina, crying tears of joy. At the celebration gala that followed, Celina stood before hundreds of guests with the same heart medicine she had once bought for a stranger. She held it up gently. "A year ago," she began, "this little box changed my life. The money I spent disappeared in one day. But the kindness behind it came back in ways I never imagined." She smiled as she looked at Paloma, Jules, and Maya. Never believe that a small act of kindness is too small. You never know whose life you're changing. The room erupted in applause. Jules slipped his arm around Celina as they looked across the room filled with families whose lives had been touched by the new health center. For the first time in many years, everything felt right. The young cashier who had once given away her last $24 had gained something money could never buy. A family. A purpose. A love that would last a lifetime. And it all began with one simple choice to help someone in need. Thank you for watching.